When I was a kid, I became obsessed with castles, grand structures of another time, built to keep people safe from all enemies and threats. But when I watched a show called Real People, where they featured a guy that built his own castle, I became inspired. At Loveland, Ohio, Harry Andrews built Chateau La Roche from 1927 to 1981. He patterned it after a European castle he saw during World War I. Through an extensive 54-year effort, he pulled stone from the nearby stream. A labor of love for the woman he cherished. You can't get much more romantic than that. Over time, he got Boy Scout helpers, and they became the Knights of the Golden Trail. Harry Andrews willed the castle to these helpers. They run it as a tourist attraction. Inspired by Harry Andrews, I wanted to make my very own castle in my grandma's woods, a safe place on top of the hill where nothing could get to me. Maybe you can identify. But I was not the only one with that idea. Other people in Indiana have made their own castles. At what's now Charlestown State Park, pioneers in the 1700s found ruins of a castle. On Rose Island, at a high place called Devil's Backbone, were ruins built of quarried stone. There are many legends of whom built it, from the Welsh Prince Madoc to Viking explorers, but it's never been proven whom. But needing stone to build houses and bridges, pioneers carried pieces of the castle away until only remnants were left. Some were even used to build the Big Fort Bridge at Jeffersonville, Indiana. When I moved to southern Indiana, a friend of mine told me about a castle in the woods, one they'd visited as a kid. Built in the 1800s, it was once on the National Register of Historic Places. Two towers ascended above a hill, dominating the valley below. All hand-built by one man. The limestone was cut from the creek below, and thousands of bricks were baked in a kiln. Sadly, it was destroyed by fire, and there's nothing left but ruins and a local memory. But there are many more. People build castles for many reasons. At Muncie, Indiana, Bob Logan asked his girlfriend to marry him. She said yes, if he would build her a castle. Challenge accepted. Completed in 1996, Bob and Barbara Logan have lived there happily ever after. At Charlestown, Indiana is Birdsell Castle. It was completed in 1994 by Mackie Griffin, later sold to David Birdsell, thus Birdsell Castle. The grounds were once a reservoir for the Army ammunition plant, and with lots of space for tents and vendors, it's hosted the Southern Indiana Renaissance Fair. And then the odd story of Mount Metamora, just outside Metamora, Indiana. It was built by a religious man that believed he was a prophet of God and had built the castle as a testament of faith. He told people of sacred relic stones that he kept in the castle that he claimed would open a portal for Jesus to start the end of the world. But that was just a warm-up. Inside the castle, he kept many odd curiosities, such as skulls and a glass display case, and many Native American artifacts. By the few that met him, he was described as eccentric but a sweet man, harmless. Shielded to the outside world, people made lots of stories, filling in the blanks of what they didn't know. If you have visions of a bed and breakfast, medieval festivals, or the like, you're in luck. Today, it's up for sale. At Bowling Green, Indiana is Clayshire Castle. It was completed in 2012 by Doug and Mary Jo Smock as a retirement project. In 2013, it was opened to the public as both a bed and breakfast and event venue. To be clear, castles take a lot of maintenance, and even the old castles in Europe are doing the same thing. Likely the most grand castle reproduction in Indiana is the Scottish Rite Cathedral in Indianapolis. While the outside resembles a Gothic cathedral, the inside is every bit a castle in the Tudor Gothic style. Built between 1927 and 1929, it cost $2.5 million. That's about $48 million in today's money, but that doesn't account for skilled labor. It was built in a time when stone and wood craftsmanship was a large trade, with many professionals in the field. It would be nearly impossible to build today. It was designed by architect and master mason George Schreiber. Every dimension is based on the number 33, a Masonic special number referencing when Jesus was resurrected. Symbolism is everywhere. Tours are offered throughout the week of this amazing structure. People have been inspired by castles. From the 1800s forward, they've borrowed the castle design from many places, ranging from the very serious to the comical. At Bedford, Indiana is the Old Jail, built between 1857 and 1859, renovated in 1909. It features nearly impenetrable limestone and a castle turret. And across town, the castle-like First Presbyterian Church, completed in 1871 at a cost of $7,000. The Arch Abbey of St. Meinrad, Indiana looks very castle-like. It was built between 1899 and 1907. Amazingly, it was designed by Franciscan brother Adrian Wooer, an untrained amateur with a gift. He designed many other churches. The nearby monastery at Ferdinand also has many castle-like features. Built between 1883 and 1924 for the Sisters of St. Benedict. Inside are vaulted ceilings, much like the castles of Europe. If you want something to last, build it like a castle. Even cemeteries borrow from the castle look. such as the Highland Lawn Cemetery Gate at Terre Haute. At Crown Hill Cemetery in Indianapolis, a mausoleum was built like a castle. It even has a drawbridge. In case you're curious, it cost $2 million for the land and $2.5 million to build it. At Santa Claus, Indiana, is Santa's Candy Castle, opened as an attraction in 1935. From the very beginning, White Castle restaurants were built to look like tiny castles, starting in 1921. And still going strong today. And if you travel to Goshen, Indiana, even the McDonald's is a large castle. But Indiana is definitely not the only place to find castles in America. At Frankfort, Kentucky, deep in bourbon country, is the Old Taylor Distillery. It was built in 1887 by Colonel Edmund Haynes Taylor Jr. However, it was abandoned during Prohibition back in 1920. It lay in ruins for many years before being refurbished as the Castle and Key Distillery. At Versailles, Kentucky, is the Kentucky Castle, absolutely amazing at a distance. Construction started in 1969 by Rex and Caroline Martin, originally called Martin Castle. It went through many owners before being refurbished and renamed Kentucky Castle. It too is a bed and breakfast and events venue, very popular for weddings. But if you want to see a really old castle, and one of the oldest things in America, you have to travel to St. Augustine, Florida. The Castillo de San Marcos was built by the Spanish colonial government from 1672 to 1695, over 330 years ago. It's the oldest masonry structure in the continental United States. After British pirate Robert Surley burned down the original wooden fort in 1668, Spanish engineer Ignacio Daza designed an ingenious construction. Built of super tough coquina rock, the walls were not only designed to deflect cannonballs, but take them head on. It's more utilitarian fort than a grand castle, but it is the real deal. Over its history, it's been used by the Spanish, British, and American forces, with some pretty dark stories in between. It's been used as a fort and a prison, and it has its share of ghost stories. One commander of the fort was Spanish Colonel Garcia Marti. He was married to a much younger, beautiful woman named Dolores. She wore a very distinctive, attractive perfume that anyone could recognize. On one fateful day, the colonel smelled his wife's perfume on one of his commanders, Captain Manuel Abuela, and he knew she was cheating on him. The next day, Dolores and Captain Abuela were missing. The colonel said that his wife had sailed home to Spain, and Captain Abuela was sent on a mission. Neither one was ever seen again. About 50 years later, a hollow sounding wall was discovered, and men broke through to find a chamber and 2 skeletons, and in the air, a very distinctive woman's perfume. Some say that even several hundred years later, you can still smell it from time to time, the spirit of the beautiful young Dolores. Not to mention the tortured souls of prisoners that died in the dungeon. Hundreds of years of history, and more stories than we'll ever know. But there's one castle I always wanted to see. It's a mysterious castle at Homestead, Florida, south of Miami. Known as Coral Castle, it was built by a small man from Latvia. He claimed to know the secrets of the Egyptians and how they built the pyramids. Between 1923 and 1951, Edward Leedskalnin, barely 5 foot tall, would work at night by himself using simple tools. No one saw how he cut and moved over 1,100 short tons of limestone. To this day, no one knows how he did it. And then it gets weird. The castle was originally at Florida City. That was until some young guys started harassing Ed and he decided to move. So he hired a flatbed truck and asked the driver to walk around the corner for a moment. The man heard a series of loud bangs, and when he ran around to see what it was, multi-ton blocks were on the back of the truck. No crane, no heavy equipment, just a small man that claimed to know the secrets of the Egyptians. Not only that, he balanced multi-ton pieces so perfectly that even a small child could move them. The castle was his own little paradise, with a spring in the center. He even bathed in a tub he made. He lived in a room at the top of the tower. With a small workshop below. He dabbled in art. And astronomy. And literally tons of furniture. He built this amazing place to honor a girl he was engaged to, but had decided not to marry him. She never saw the castle, and he never tried to marry again. Ed charged 10 cents per people to tour his castle, and instructed young people of living virtuous lives. By all accounts, he was a nice yet eccentric man. I think I would have liked him for many reasons. Whatever secrets he knew, he took to the grave. I can only wonder if he thought the world could be trusted with them. A part of me still wishes I had the land, money, and time to build a castle of my own in the country. But I'm no longer that 10-year-old boy that dreamed of high walls, towers, and a safe place. Time taught me that there's no safe place on earth, and no walls can protect you from all the dragons and monsters of this life. They will find you, no matter where you live. Safety and control are temporary illusions, a fairy tale where the good guy always wins and everyone lives happily ever after. The secret is not a big castle where life can't get to you. It's having a peace and a confidence when it does.